Weeks before the Epstein files officially dropped, Ellen DeGeneres quietly vanished from American soil. And now, Katt Williams is pulling back the curtain. According to Williams, Epstein had a powerful Hollywood insider doing his dirty work, and all roads reportedly lead back to Ellen, specifically her alleged ties to the notorious Ghislaine Maxwell.
Her stories have changed so many times about what happens, when it happens, how it happens, with different versions. And each time she speaks, there's a different version.
That is from the documentary that's just aired in the United States. That's come just off the satellite. For more, we're joined by US broadcaster Cooper Lawrence to dissect it. What did you make of Ghislaine Maxwell?
It reminded me of Nobody Taught Me How to Curtsy and I Didn't Inhale. There was a lot of this evidence that came out during the trial that suddenly she's like, no, it's fake. I mean, during the trial, they showed her that photo and said, yeah, that's me, that's my apartment, I recognize it. And, you know, it was one of the things that indicted her. Now suddenly it's a fake photograph.
Let's start with the timeline, because the facts here are impossible to ignore. On June 28, 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell received a 20-year federal prison sentence, along with a $750,000 fine for her role in conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to exploit and abuse minors. Acting as Epstein's primary recruiter, Ghislaine actively hunted for vulnerable victims, ultimately being convicted on 5 counts, including the trafficking and transportation of underage girls for abuse spanning a full decade, from 1994 to 2004. Now here's where things get deeply suspicious. That exact same window, the period when Maxwell's conviction was finalized and her sentencing handed down, is precisely when Ellen pulled the plug on her massively profitable talk show. She didn't just leave the spotlight quietly, she vanished entirely. And nobody in mainstream media thought to question why.
Ellen DeGeneres and her wife, Portia de Rossi, have reportedly fled the US, bound for the UK, after Donald Trump's landslide victory. Numerous publications are reporting the couple have left the United States permanently. There are also reports the couple have put their Montecito mansion on the market. Entertainment publication The Wrap has the exclusive story and said, Ellen DeGeneres and wife Portia de Rossi have moved to rural England, put their Montecito estate on the market and plan to never return to the United States, telling friends the election of Donald Trump was their primary motivation. Ellen DeGeneres has been a vocal Trump critic, so the move doesn't come as a surprise to most.
They're losing their minds.
She sounded so sincere, didn't she?
Very sincere.
Virtually choke on her words. But the best one for me is Ellen DeGeneres, who is, by the way, a very nasty person. I've had dealings with her in Australia. Could I tell you some stories about that cow? But anyway, good riddance to her. But she was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Well, this is why I say release the Diddy files.
Yeah.
Release the Diddy files. Come on, Donald Trump. We want to know whose name.
So maybe she's hightailing out of there before all that is thrown at her as well. But what a bunch of hypocrites.
If the timing alone wasn't enough to raise red flags, what happened next made everything far more chilling. Just 2 months after Ellen quietly relocated to the UK and dramatically altered her appearance, her show's executive producer, Stephen "Twitch" Boss, was found dead from an apparent suicide. What allegedly surfaced in his final note is haunting. He reportedly wrote that he could no longer remain silent within an industry that had corrupted him, expressing deep shame for not speaking out sooner. He described feeling suffocated by stress and guilt without ever naming specifics. That deliberate vagueness is what strikes people the hardest. What was Twitch protecting? And more importantly, who was he protecting it from?
We're learning more tonight about the tragic side of Stephen "Twitch" Boss and the detailed steps he took to hide his plans. TMZ is reporting when Twitch left his home the day before he took an Uber to a motel about a mile away. At the motel, he switched his phone to airplane mode so no one could reach him. The motel manager says he checked in under his own name and never left his room. We also now know that Twitch left a suicide note. Details have not been made public, but TMZ reports the note alluded to challenges Twitch had faced in the past. Entertainer Tyler Perry knows firsthand what that is like.
I want to take you back to a time in my life where I tried to commit suicide a couple of times because it was so dark. I thought the only way to make this better, this pain go away, is to end my life. Had any of those attempts happened, I would have missed the best part of my life.
None of this is accidental. And Katt Williams made that crystal clear. Nobody walks away from a show generating hundreds of millions annually without a serious reason. Katt has repeatedly stated that Hollywood operates on calculated moves, never random ones. Ellen didn't retire. She ran. The Maxwell sentencing spooked her. And the looming Epstein file releases pushed her completely over the edge. Fear does that to people.
For the type of ratings we need and attention to be on this thing. See, what I'm saying is, in business, nothing is coincidental, or you would be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money. When these rappers get killed, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million and now don't have to talk to that artist or none of their crew, don't have to validate none of their contracts. Now only got to deal with the mama, only got to see her once a year, and it's over. And the money goes up and up and up. So they killed this $20 million guy, but they reaped $60 million in benefits.
Wow.
And they had some people from your city do it.
Wow.
I'm saying there's the good side and the bad side of these businesses, and
but think about what you just think about what you just said. That's extremely thoughtful and powerful. It could only be what it was if it were those two. Those two, yes. Will Smith and Chris Rock. It could only be what it has been, yes. With those two Black men.
If you put any other names together, the police are out on stage, they've cut to commercial, you didn't see what happened. By the time they come out, people have been removed, it goes on. It's certain ways things are handled when it's not intentional. When things go smoothly, but they seem chaotic, that means there was forethought and a plan. Somebody, even if it looks like, yeah, Janet Jackson just had a wardrobe malfunction. Yeah, there's no such thing.
Correct.
I don't care who you blame it.
I believe that.
Somebody benefited. Yeah. So in all of these situations, there's a business involved and there's real money involved, and somebody's benefiting from this thing that looks like, oh, that just happened. Nah, no way. No way.
As the Epstein documents continue surfacing, audiences are rewatching Ellen's old episodes, and what they're finding is genuinely disturbing. Court records indicate Epstein had deep interest in harvesting stem cells from fetuses and minors, tied to obsessions around genetics, reproduction, and manufacturing some kind of biological legacy, with billionaire Peter Nygård reportedly woven into that same dark web. Now cross-reference that with content Ellen was openly broadcasting on national television. The parallels aren't subtle, they're glaring. Critics argue this wasn't entertainment, it was conditioning. A slow, deliberate effort to make audiences comfortable with ideas that should have horrified them from the very beginning.
Okay, let's talk about this facial that you're obsessed with. How many, did you get the whole cast of Ocean's 8 to do this?
Not everybody.
Okay, good, smart ones.
Just those that I thought would appreciate it.
Okay, explain what it is.
Well, it's this way in which one forces through microneedling. It's like a little roller with these, some of you, I think many of you know it, and it pushes through the skin and ruptures the collagen and then boosts it. You look like a burn victim for a day, but then it pushes the serum.
What are you pushing into the skin, Sandra?
Sarah?
Carrie? What are you pushing into the skin?
Well, you push in whatever the facialist would like to insert into your pores.
But what is it?
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
It's foreskin from a Korean.
Ellen wasn't operating in isolation either. The pattern stretched across Hollywood. On March 20th, 2016, Steve Harvey sat down with Emmy-winning NBC host Michelle Park, who unveiled Oprah Winfrey's personally endorsed anti-aging product from SkinMedica, a cream reportedly derived from the foreskin tissue of minors. The company itself acknowledges using neonatal foreskin fibroblasts to stimulate cellular regeneration. Conspiracy theorists have latched onto this connection, arguing that elite celebrities have long been exploiting youth harvesting practices under the guise of luxury skincare. Whether or not you accept that theory, the optics are deeply uncomfortable. Did Hollywood's most powerful figures were openly promoting these products? smiling, endorsing, normalizing, while ordinary viewers had absolutely no idea what they were actually being sold.
I'm going to put a little on your hand.
I'll do that. Oprah did.
Yeah, Oprah did it. All right, so here, we're going to rub it right in.
How come it's red?
I'll show you in a sec, Steve. So this is made from growth hormones of human...
Look, the wrinkles has just disappeared. I can't even ball my hand up.
So it's made from human foreskin. I'm sorry, Steve.
You done sat up here and squirted somebody's private parts in my damn hair. What you laughing at?
I'm sorry.
This your last time on the show. This your last time. Not coming.
Even investigative journalist Chris Hansen, during his deep dive into the Epstein network, reached conclusions that went far beyond sexual abuse. His findings aligned with what researchers and insiders had already been saying, that Epstein's island was a hub for something significantly darker. DOJ released emails show Epstein explicitly discussing genetic engineering and the extraction of cells from children, which would then be distributed to his elite circle under the guise of anti-aging treatments. These weren't fringe theories. These were documented communications. The implications are staggering. And the fact that mainstream media buried it makes everything worse.
Billionaire freakazoid. Yes. And part of his deal, he's in prison in jail up in Canada, waiting, charges all over the globe. But his deal was that he would allegedly impregnate young women in the Bahamas, where he had a huge home, and then have them get abortions and harvest their stem cells of the fetuses to inject in himself as the fountain of youth. And we get into this in that documentary. And was Epstein involved in that sort of activity? I don't know.
That's where, and again, we just have to look at what we have and know what we don't yet.
Yeah.
But it's a question.
Yeah,
when you
it's
look at the
it's
context
a legitimate
of the jerky
question.
stuff.
Yeah, and when you look at what other billionaire guys have done, were they in contact somehow? I mean, obviously, there are some people who are in the concentric circles of associates.
Katt Williams took this conversation to one of the biggest platforms in the world, the Joe Rogan podcast, and held nothing back. He stated plainly that the same powerful industry figures controlling Hollywood are actively sourcing young men and women for trafficking operations. He directly named both Diddy and Epstein as the two central figures steering the entire network.
That's why those one world people exist, because it's a very powerful concept to have and far too lucrative and beneficial to not. Everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it, and provided the way for you to to have $1 billion and not create a fantasy island type environment has not existed throughout history.
Right.
Beyond the symbolism allegedly embedded in Ellen's content, what Katt Williams revealed about his own personal encounters adds a terrifying layer of credibility to everything. In a candid sit-down with Theo Von, Katt described being genuinely stunned by Harvey Weinstein's reach and raw power. Mo Weinstein reportedly extended Katt a personal invitation, access to any actress he desired. Women Weinstein kept on speed dial like personal commodities. The price of entry? Silence, and active participation in recruiting fresh talent. Fans, aspiring actors, models, and most disturbingly, child performers into the network. Katt refused, but his account forces an uncomfortable question. How many others received that same offer and said yes? And how many of those people are still running? Virginia Giuffre was among the first to rip the curtain back and expose the mechanics of how this operation actually functioned. Epstein didn't work alone. That much is undeniable. while building a trafficking network that ensnared hundreds of victims and delivered them to the global elite required a full team of scouts and recruiters operating simultaneously. Ghislaine Maxwell was the most visible of these recruiters, but she was far from the only one. Investigators and victims alike believe there were dozens of recruiters embedded across different industries who were never identified, never arrested, and never held accountable. They're likely still out there, protected by wealth, influence, and strategic silence. Ghislaine Maxwell's downfall ultimately came from the sheer volume of her operation. It became too large to conceal. She recruited hundreds of victims for Epstein, deliberately targeting teenagers who were financially desperate or emotionally broken. And Epstein was positioned to these girls as a generous benefactor, someone who genuinely wanted to uplift them. Multiple survivors have described Ghislaine's cruelest trait, her ability to identify your lowest moment and weaponize it. She didn't just exploit vulnerability, she sought it out, cultivated it, and used your pain as leverage to make you comply. That calculated predatory precision is what made her arguably more dangerous than Epstein himself.
She had no remorse in her voice. Ghislaine has no soul. And you know yourself what I've been through trying to take her down. And the reason why I've had to go through that is because she's a dangerous human being. She will reoffend, and reoffend. These people never stop, ever.
A recently resurfaced interview with Ghislaine Maxwell went massively viral, and it's not hard to understand why. In it, Maxwell essentially confirmed what victims and investigators have argued for years. Epstein was eliminated precisely to shield the powerful figures connected to him from ever facing justice. To date, and over 400 high-profile individuals across the globe have been publicly linked to Epstein's network. And that's only based on what's been released. Epstein was reportedly prepared to name names, which many believe sealed his fate. Over 1 million documents remain redacted, and experts estimate that represents less than half of the total material recovered. The full picture, whatever it looks like, is being deliberately kept from the public.
The Department of Justice just dropped last month's jailhouse interview with Epstein Madam Ghislaine Maxwell. And it's a doozy. First, she doesn't think Epstein killed himself.
So you think he did not die by suicide, given all the things we just talked about?
I do not believe he died by suicide, no.
And do you believe that, do you have any speculation or view of who killed him?
No, I don't.
And what about Epstein's infamous client list? Did he even have a list?
You never observed, or you never saw any sort of list or black book or a list of individuals who linked to certain masseuses or
Absolutely
anything
no.
like that?
Absolutely no. There is no list. There is no, I'm not aware of any blackmail. I never heard that, I never saw it, and I never imagined it.
The list doesn't exist? So flight manifests don't exist? The surveillance tapes don't exist? The bank records don't exist? Well, what about Trump? The media spent the last couple months trying to smear him as Epstein's predator pal.
I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world?
Absolutely never. In any context.
A good portion of the interview focused on Bill Clinton. Author Daniel Halper told Primetime Clinton was romantically involved with Maxwell. Would Ghislaine sell out her old flame? And she was asked about Bill and said he never did anything inappropriate and that Bill never went to Epstein's island.
And the silencing hasn't stopped. Katt Williams has openly admitted that powerful elites are closing in on him. and he fully believes it's only a matter of time before they find a way to shut him down permanently.
I infiltrate the Illuminati, find out what the fuck they got going on, get the information, run back to y'all, tell y'all everything I know. That's my motherfucking job. But I don't know how many more times I'm gonna be able to sneak in there. Thanks to Shannon Sharp and 90 million views, I can't sneak very often. So while I was in there this last time, knowing that my last report might be my last report, I went in there and I got information for everybody. Look at my white friends. Us too? That's right, white secrets.
To truly grasp how much is being hidden, consider this. DOJ released emails show Epstein explicitly coordinating the trafficking of victims to elite associates. Yet not one of those emails names a single recipient. Hundreds of thousands of additional documents are entirely blacked out, deliberately stripped of any identifying information. The people who received those victims, attended those gatherings, and benefited from that network are walking free right now, and the system is actively protecting every single one of them.
Question: which one do you prefer, lewd and lascivious conduct or procuring minors for prostitution? I suppose lewd and lascivious conduct. I would prefer lewd and lascivious conduct with a prostitute if possible. That exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell on May 23, 2008 is part of some 18,000 emails from Epstein's personal Yahoo account obtained by Bloomberg News.
The emails, which suggest the inbox was most active between 2005 and 2008, include messages spanning 2002 to 2022. Epstein died in 2019, and emails received after that are largely spam or marketing offers. Overall, the emails offer a raw look into the disgraced financier and sex offender's world.
While this inbox wasn't the only one he used, the newly uncovered emails do suggest how central Maxwell was to his life. Something that contradicts her telling of events. She's characterized herself as a former girlfriend and property manager for Epstein, not someone with eyes into his vast influence machine or sex trafficking operation. She's currently serving a 20-year sentence for conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse minors. Maxwell was central to curating Epstein's inner circle, according to these emails. In some emails, she's organizing visits with the likes of Sergey Brin and his then-girlfriend Anne Wojcicki.
Perhaps the most infuriating detail in all of this is where Ghislaine Maxwell ended up. Despite her monstrous convictions, she was quietly transferred to a minimum security facility and granted privileges that most inmates could never dream of, including her own puppy. A fellow inmate reportedly described her treatment as existing in a completely different category from everyone else. More disturbing still, when Epstein survivors poured their pain out before Congress, Maxwell reportedly watched with total indifference. No guilt, no remorse, just cold, calculated detachment from the lives she helped destroy.
I know for a fact she's getting special treatment.
Les Trent spoke to Sam Mangle, a prison consultant who has 3 clients at the same facility as Maxwell, the Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas.
Whether it's access to a laptop computer, which is unheard of, to visits where they lock down the camp and no one can leave their bunks while she's having visitors.
Allegations of other perks, according to the New York Times, include meals being delivered to her cell and being served bottled water while other inmates drink tap water, playing with service dogs, showering alone, and watching TV alone in staff-only areas. They even provided her with an umbrella to shade her from the hot Texas sun while she took her daily walks.
She's been given the freedom and liberties that the other inmates do not have.
Last July, Maxwell was moved from a medium security prison in Florida to the minimum security camp in Texas. This followed her meeting with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. According to reports, fellow inmates at the facility were threatened with solitary confinement or transferred to a tougher penitentiary if they voiced complaints about Maxwell's perks.
They've been told from the day she got there, do not discuss her, do not put anything in writing, do not talk about her on the phone, do not make any trouble regarding Miss Maxwell, or we will move you to another location.
This story is far from finished. New documents keep surfacing, and every release opens another door. Subscribe, hit like, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what drops next. The comment section is open. What do you believe is still being deliberately kept from the public?